I think there are like 3 identities.
Okay.
It's the pre-relationship identity, the during relationship identity, and the past relationship identity.
When you were talking about the fact that you're this new person and your identity's changed, I was like, actually, I've left some of my relationships and I've been like, who was I in that relationship? Like, what was that identity like? That wasn't me. And it goes back to the last episode when we were talking about like how much you lose yourself. And it's like, yeah, in some ways, like it was more that when I would end a relationship, I felt like I reverted back.
Because if you always try to be in control of your identity development, you'll not have fun in life, because you'll always be like, yeah, is this who I want to be? Like, if I say yes to this trip, will I still be myself?
Love doesn't need to be shit.
Your podcast on how to create a healthy relationship with Evie and Ben.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Love Doesn't Need to Be Shit.
Hello.
With me, Evie.
And me, Ben.
And today we are going to be talking about identity and what that means in a relationship.
Ooh.
Yeah. Ben teased this actually at the start of the last episode,
Yeah.
where he started to talk about the fact that often we're actually trying to fight for our identity in a relationship. So much of identity comes down to the sense of self. So that's the topic that we will be covering off today.
The thing I said was that it was actually a question. It was, do you lose your identity if you give in? And hopefully we'll answer this question today.
Well, we'll at least take our perspectives on it. So, honey, where would you like to start?
Well, first of all, I would like to start with a little reminder for all of our listeners and viewers out there. If you haven't done it yet, click the like button, click the subscribe button, leave a comment, share our podcast to people you know that would love to listen to Love Doesn't Need to Be Shit as well. Help us to spread the word. Help us to get this lovely guy. His name's Algorithm, I believe. he either loves you or hates you. But please make this guy love us. So hit the subscribe button. Write a comment. Repost. Do whatever.
A lot of action for
Just
people.
Honestly, engage.
Show us some love.
Yes. And of course, subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, on Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. We're also on iHeartRadio and all of these other podcast apps. But
I don't know of
listens to
anyone
that?
that uses those.
Exactly.
It's bad enough that I use Apple Podcasts, I think, but I love Apple Podcasts.
So yeah, without further ado, thanks a lot for listening, and now let's dive into
Identity.
Yeah.
All right. So, honey, what does identity mean to you in the relationship?
Oh wow.
Big question.
It is quite a big question. I feel like I try to summarize this now. What does identity mean in a relationship? But it really, I think, comes down to what does identity mean to myself. So we've done the episode about the you, me, and the we. So there's always the three parts in a relationship, and I believe that is true with the identity kind of as well. But of course, you start with your own identity. So you get into the relationship with your own identity kind of. So, and what does your own identity consist of? This was a question I asked myself in the preparation, and I came up with like, what are your preferences? Like, what are your beliefs? Kinda. What is your character? Your qualities. What are your feelings, your personal traits, and how is your appearance? Like, your appearance changes your character as well.
Like when your hair's up or down.
Yeah, 100%.
It
Like
does change your character.
it does, doesn't it? Or like if you have short hair or long hair, will definitely change your character as well. Even if we feel like, it's a bit superficial, but it kind of
Nose ring
does.
or no nose ring.
Nose ring, no nose ring, exactly. And expressions. So it's like, how do you speak? What's your eloquency? What kind of words do you use to describe things? That is definitely part of your character as well. Yeah. And of course, like, how have you become this person? Like, so it's kind of like your upbringing and your view on the world. So there's
Lots of factors.
quite a lot into
I
this
feel like
character.
the one other big thing that you haven't mentioned specifically, because I think you've probably interpreted it as part of beliefs, is your values.
Yeah. Yeah, it's my qualities, yeah.
Oh, your qualities. I thought your qualities were like your good looks and charm.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, like, yeah, beliefs, preferences, yeah, values, definitely. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
And even the things that we've spoken about before, like your cultural upbringing and those kind of things, like they still play into your identity and all of these layers.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And then because you asked me like, what is your identity in a relationship? I think there are like 3 identities.
Okay.
It's the pre-relationship identity, the during relationship identity, and the past relationship identity. Like, no matter how long your relationship is or was, there will always be like a past relationship identity, I think.
Within that same relationship.
No, out of.
From a previous relationship.
Yeah.
So
Well,
in your head, what's the difference between pre-relationship and past relationship?
so we met, and I was a certain type of person when we met.
Yeah, short hair, no nose ring.
There you go. A lot has changed, hasn't it? But no, so you met me as at a specific stage in my life where I've developed a certain character or identity. And since we've been together, of course, my identity has changed because of your influence, of all the adventures we've gone through, the experiences we had. It's just a lot of development within this relationship. So it's like it's like my identity during this relationship, which will always be a little bit different, right? But then, just speaking from past experiences, when the relationship ended, there was always this past relationship identity. Like, I always got out of a relationship and I felt like a different person. It's kind of, and the funny thing is that I never attributed it like not 100% to the relationship, although I know it is because of the relationship. Like, the relationship changed me, but it's kind of like the relationship ended and it's kind of like oh yeah, like I'm on my own again. So you take all of these experiences and you all of a sudden become a different version of yourself again. So this is why I thought about like, well, no, pretty sure 3 stages of identity: pre, during, and post relationship. What do you think?
No, I think that's fair. The big thing that came to my mind then was that I was thinking, like, actually, when I think back to some of my relationships, like when you were talking about the fact that you're this new person and your identity's changed, I was like, actually, I've left some of my relationships and I've been like, who was I in that relationship? Like, what was that identity? Like, that wasn't me. And it goes back to the last episode when we were talking about like how much you lose yourself. And it's like, yeah, in some ways, like, it was more that when I would end a relationship, I felt like I reverted back to be more of my sense of identity, as opposed to being, and in some ways that's like an evolved version of myself, but it's a slightly different variation, I think, to what you're saying.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So I would like to kind of like structure this episode a little bit in these 3 episodes, or 3
Chapters,
Three ch-
categories.
3 categories of an identity.
Okay,
Does this make sense to you?
it's fine by me, love.
Yeah.
You're definitely the episode organizer at the moment.
Yeah.
I think you always will be, actually,
Because
you like doing a lot of prep.
so the episode's organized.
Sounds like our life.
Eventually, I would like an equal amount of preparation.
That's fine. There'll just be no fuck it toolkit or tell me your shit that week.
Which are our new categories. Containers? Features. Let's call them features. So we used to have community question and community quest, which both sounded lame and not engaging at all, so defied the purpose, which we changed now to fuck it toolkit and share your shit. So share your stories to help you deal with it, and the toolkit to take the things and just give it a go. Try. Okay, first chapter, pre-relationship. What is important when it comes to an identity or your identity?
See, this is more like just before I enter a relationship, I'm thinking about like the single version of myself. And what's important? Is it like what's important to establish it? What are the important factors?
Yeah.
All of the above?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think one of the biggest things, especially if you're about to enter a relationship, is having a strong sense of identity. Not in the sense of you're not malleable, you're not willing to change at all, because that's not going to work, but having a strong sense of like your values and what's really important to you. And like this is an exercise that I did like before we got into a relationship when I was single, where I was going through and I was actually writing down about what I wanted from a relationship, and I was using my sense of identity when it was in a really like strong place where I felt really happy with my life, to establish what it was that would be important for me for someone to add to that. So I think there's 2 bits, because if you're coming from a great place, if everything's going great in your life, you're in a great position to sit and work out what is important to you and what you'd like to gain from entering into a partnership. But equally, there's often this pre-relationship feeling where you're not necessarily happy with your life and the direction in which it's heading. And I think it's really important to establish what that is your identity and sense of self, and work out what is it that you're not happy with. Is it to do with anything in your core values? Is it that your life isn't aligned to some of your beliefs and some of the things that you think are important? And how can you get some of that stuff in order first?
Can you elaborate? Like, what do you mean with like you're not happy with it? Like you're not happy with your own identity?
Sometimes I think that's the case. Sometimes I think that people haven't, I say people, like even myself in the past, hasn't even stopped to think about my identity. You just bumble through life and these different events happen and things challenge you and shape you and you become this version of yourself. But you've never stopped to think about whether you are happy with that version of yourself and whether your life aligns to that version of yourself that you want to be.
Okay, so you talk more about how you feel in your body, like not who you are.
But I think so much of that is like we can change who we are. Sometimes there's a misconnect between who we want to be deep down inside and who we are in terms of how we show up every day. And like, you've kind of got this missing identity where if you really question it, who you want to be deep down inside is different to who you are being at the moment. So you've kind of got this like external identity, but you've got this deep down internal identity, but you might not, if you don't sit and spend time, multiple things, like sit and spend time with yourself, like read books, listen to podcasts, go and have new experiences, make new friends, like try new things out, move to a new city, like all of these different factors are things that you use to learn more about yourself and shape that identity. No matter what, you have an identity, but I think there's a lot of people where it doesn't feel aligned. It feels like something's off and you don't know why unless you do that exploration.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I see. Yeah, it's more like finding out who you are.
Yeah.
I'm now trying to figure out if we're talking about the same thing.
But this is why it's like there's so much to talk about, because when we were talking about, well, what's identity, it's everything from like your values and your core beliefs, like that, and your cultural upbringing, right? They're less malleable, they're less likely to change. But your qualities and your characteristics and all of these different things, like I think they can be really fluid depending on the environments that you're in.
I think there is always like a ground, like a basic kit you always apply on your actions, which is your character. So you'll always like melt down to this character. That's, I think, which is then like, you know, when you talk about someone and you be like, oh yeah, but he's or she's just more like this and that. That's the identity part, isn't it? Because you identify this person as X, Y, or Z, right?
Right. But how many people do you know that are potentially displaying these different character traits and that's not really who they want to be showing up as?
So they don't want to be showing up as these traits, or they not really these traits?
Yeah.
Which one of these?
It could be both.
Could be both.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about both.
I don't think we should. It gets complicated.
It really does. Like even now I'm like, oh, where are we going? Okay, I think coming back to this pre-relationship stage, what is very important from my experience is to reflect on the past relationship, or to reflect on your current situation, on all of these things you've said, like all of these external influences, but also on these internal influences. So whether you have a new group of friends, like a social environment, a new job environment, or a new city, or if you started to gain interest in new things. So reflect on that, like how does that change you? And then also internally, like do the work. How did your last relationship go? What didn't work out? Why didn't it work out? What was your part of it? And then even further back, like where do you come from? Why are you like how you are? You know, like all of these bits to figure out who you are. And I at least feel like I've always done this after each end of a relationship. And even this part, like where I'm from, who am I, like even that, like always recalibrate that. Is this still true? Like from the past version of it, like does this need an update, or is this still factually correct, you know? Or have I gained something, realized something new in order to be aware of it? And this awareness will then ultimately also change my identity, so my appearance. And then, of course, the people I meet. Which brings us to the during relationship part. How do you see identity during a relationship?
So you have to come into it and know that you're this whole human and this other person is this whole human that have both got like these, in essence, like strong identities. But really, to make it work, it's kind of like you create a combined identity. Like, I feel like I have a different identity being with you, just even from the perspective of like your identity shifts drastically between being a single person and being a person in a relationship. And it's like, how do you keep that strong sense of self and that strong sense of character and factors that are important to you, but find that blend between what is your new identity when you enter a relationship?
Do you feel like you should be conscious about that?
I don't know how conscious you should be. Like, I think you should be aware of it, like aware that of the factors that are important to you in your identity, and aware of like the fact that you should be able to change and create this new identity. But I think you should kind of go with the flow with it to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And you?
I've never really consciously thought about my change of identity, only if it was too extreme.
Mm-hmm.
Like, listening, if you guys haven't done it yet, listen to the past episode number 6, where we talk about the pacifist and the activist. So when I thought I had to give in too much and the elastic band would kind of just rip, be like, oh, that's kind of like out of the range of my identity. I don't feel like myself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Which was always the moment where I realized, like, no, something's not going right here. Like, this is not me. What am I doing?
So do you think you should have been more aware of it sooner?
No, I don't think so. Like, I think it's important to realize it at that moment, but I think it's equally important to just go with it, because if you always try to be in control of your identity development, you'll not have fun in life, because you will always double check things and question everything and be like, oh, is this like, because you'll always be like, oh, is this who I want to be? Like, if I say yes to this trip, will I still be myself? Whereas I still, like, regardless of course, you should always act according to your values. Sure. But no, I don't think you should overthink what identity you develop.
No, I agree. I think there's a huge element of, when you're dating, especially, like really being aware of what your identity is, and if you think that you would be able to be yourself and be comfortable, and like if you're already starting to change some of your ways of being, ways of behaving when you're dating, to try and like, yeah, everyone will do it to a certain extent, right? Like dress up nice all of the time, whatever. But if you feel like you're already doing things that don't feel core to you and true to you, like that dating experience probably isn't going well no matter how much you like that person. But as soon as you decide, like, okay, we've dated, like I'm entering a relationship with this person, you've hopefully already crossed some of those like core things about whether this person aligns with your identity or not. And you should be able to show up fully as yourself, but 100% like go with it, have fun. Like one of the biggest questions that I asked myself when I was dating you was not just like, am I being true to myself and am I 100% showing up as me? But it was also, I think I'm going to learn a lot from being with this person. And for me, that was huge. It was like, you know, even if this relationship doesn't work out in 3 months, 6 months time, I'll have learned a lot. And that's a whole part of the identity. Like, how can I learn about myself in a relationship, and how can I learn about who I become, and how can I learn about how I operate with someone to shape that next evolution?
Okay. To me, it's more like when entering or when dating, I always feel more like, is this person aware of my identity. So first of all, had this person had the chance to see my whole personality, like that, my whole identity, and to figure out, oh, I'm dealing with this. This is all you get. Like once you get into a relationship with me, like this is what you get. Had this person have the possibility to figure that out, first of all. And second of all, does this person accept that whole bag, or is it more like, yeah,
can I take these 5?
Yeah, exactly.
Ditch
Like,
these
is
5.
it like cherry picking, or is it more like, yeah, no, like I feel comfortable with all of it. And then the reciprocity.
I can't say this word either.
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity.
She's native.
It's a really hard word to say. Reciprocity. No, I can't.
The reciprocity. I go with that.
That's not the word.
People will understand.
There's more letters in the word.
Reciprocity. Anyways, guys. So the codependence. It's not the codependence, but me giving, or she accepting me and me accepting her. So on both sides. That is the next step. Like if she accepts me, will I fully seen her identity, and am I willing to accept that whole lot?
It's been really hard for me to concentrate because I'm still trying to say reciprocity. I can't say it.
Let me
No.
that. Yeah, no. So yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Do you know what's interesting on that point? Like one of the things that I was cautious about when we were
reciprocity.
There we go.
Sorry.
One of the things that I was cautious about when we first started dating was like we dated for like a week, right? And then I went home for Christmas and I was hanging out with all of my friends, and like I only really saw a more serious side of you. Like yeah, like we went out, but like it, and we had fun, but like I wouldn't like. No offense, but you weren't funny.
You make it sound like I was dire. Like it was hard.
I mean, I was dying. I was sick. But you weren't, we didn't really have banter, I would say. I'd say that a lot of our initial dating period was very serious. And that was one of my biggest concerns, was like, oh, we're not going to go away and actually have fun together. So it's interesting. It's like, oh, you need to see the full side of someone. But for whatever reason, like, I don't feel like we necessarily managed that.
Yeah, which is hard to believe considering how funny I am.
Crickets. All of your friends would listen to this, like, stop.
Yeah, honestly. No, but the thing is, like, I never understood why you thought at the beginning I was so serious. I never did. And I always told you when we were having calls, I was always like, yeah, but I don't understand. What do you mean I'm so serious? Like, I'm not. Like, I'm silly. Everyone who knows me will say, like, yeah, he's a bit of a silly man.
Mm.
So I'm more than fun and, like, not serious. All of the opposite.
But it really didn't come across.
Yeah, it's interesting one. I didn't know why. Like, when back then, could be a language barrier, could have been just not time. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. But no, I agree. Like, I feel like you've gone to every endeavor since then to show me every single element of your life and your personality.
Yeah, and I think that is important. Like, show your identity to your partner.
And show all of it. Like, even the bits that you're a bit like, oh... And there's always an element of this. There's always such an element, especially when you're first in a relationship, of I think especially when we're single, we all have parts of our identity that we know aren't great. But it's so much like, but I don't really need to work on that. Like, I can just let that go. That's not important. That doesn't bother anyone. And you can just live your own life in this little bubble. And then you start dating someone and you're a bit like, oh, shit, like, I either now have to try and hide this part of me or they're going to see it. And then it's also like, oh shit, that means I have to do the work. But I think that is so important that you show up even with the things that you don't love about yourself at that present moment in time, and you're just honest about it.
Yeah. Honesty is definitely important, and authenticity as well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keep being within the relationship.
Okay.
So even in a relationship, something happens with an identity, doesn't it?
Does it?
It really does, yeah.
Oh, do you want to tell me what? Because you expected me to give an answer that it sounds like you know.
No, if you know, please answer. What happens within a relationship with your identity?
So I think you end up, like, your own identity ends up shifting 100% for two reasons. One, because you influence me. But like I said before, like, my identity is going to be different when I identify as being in a relationship. Even the way that people have conversations with me and the way that people treat you in society is slightly different when you're in a relationship. So there's both of those factors. And then I also think that we spend so much time together, for example, that actually, like, often our identity is shared.
Yeah. We're not that classic we couple. We're not like, we haven't become a person, like one person, and I don't want to. But we are like we think very similar. We share very similar values, and we have similar visions, so that really helps. What I think is interesting, before we entered our relationship, we had chats about our independence and how important it is to both of us to stay independent within our relationship. And I always said, like, you can't stay, like, to a certain degree, yeah, you'll always be independent, but you'll always be codependent as well. Like, that's the nature of being in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It's also like, oh, I don't want to, like, I always want to be myself. Yeah, you always will be yourself with an influence from me. Like, even if I don't want to, I will, because you will naturally take it up.
Naturally take it up, or
Like,
all of
pick
the
it up.
times that you tell me that you don't like things that I do, and therefore I change.
Yeah, only the negative things.
No, you do reinforce a lot of positives too.
Thank you, darling. Thank you, darling. Now I'm getting feedback again. What a bad boyfriend I am, and you getting offers from other people to get into a relationship with them because they'll treat you better.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing this podcast. Fred, just come save me.
This is how much Tinder fucks up. Okay, no, but in a relationship, yes, I think your identity shifts as well. But again, if you I think the important thing in a relationship is as well to, well, regularly, I say regularly, like you should do it quarterly review on yourself, but like just reflect on yourself. How do you feel? Do you still feel like you can be yourself? Do you still feel like you can be yourself around the other person? Do you still feel like you live what you are, or you are what you live? So is there any discrepancy? Yeah, here we go.
Here's a course on English for you all.
That's me. This is me.
How would you say that your identity has changed since we've got in a relationship?
Softer, definitely softer.
Would you?
No, I'm not sure. Like, I'm definitely more grounded with you. But yeah, maybe a bit softer. Yeah, no, I'd say so. How do you think you've changed?
Like, even some, like, this will sound like probably not what you'd expect, but it's like things like this are even big parts of your identity. I would say that I now identify as being a healthier person. Like, even like, if anyone doesn't know, like, I've never met a person take food shopping so seriously. Like, he reads how much sugar is on the back of like almond milk. Like, that's still something Ben will check.
Sugar kills.
So it's all of these, even these things. I've always been like relatively healthy, but it's like now I say no to like a lot of like snacks and all of these things more, and it's like even my family can notice a difference, and it's like they see a shift in my identity from that point of view, because I'm now showing up as this person that doesn't eat so much rubbish.
Sugar is evil.
Anyway, but then I think there's other elements as well where I think that you do a lot to encourage me to be a bit more courageous and to just try new things and to just go with stuff. So I would say that like there's a lot of things where I feel like I've become a more confident person, and I have this more like, fuck it, what could go wrong identity. And I wouldn't say that either of these are like drastic shifts. It's not like I've gone from feeling unhealthy to healthy, but I feel like I've been on this scale like relatively confident but now more confident, relatively healthy but now more healthy. And I think that they're positive shifts in identity. They're already things that I would be happy to be. So I've been able to move along the scale in a way that works for me. I'm still nowhere near as healthy as you.
It's more like things that are already there that I could reinforce.
Amplify.
Yeah, amplify is the right word. Like, they're already there, but because of me, you could amplify them. And I think the same is true for me. Like, I mean, if I would say I'm more... It's hard. It's really hard to tell, but it's like I'm more putting things into action, which is a weird thing to say because I already felt like I've put a lot of things into action, but like it's a different thing putting things into action, a different way of putting things into action with you now, since I've been in a relationship with you, because it's a bit different.
Yeah, it's fair.
More possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I think it's like you say, it doesn't need to be super frequently, but I just think having those regular check-ins with yourself and asking yourself those questions and understanding how your identity is shifting and whether you're like content with some of those things, because I think so often we don't do that, especially when you're spending 24/7 with someone. You're just going with the flow and going with the flow and going with the flow without taking that time to really step back and think about it.
Yeah. Okay, we got pre-relationship, we got during relationship. What about past relationship?
You start, because I'm still...
Or post-relationship, that's the right word. Post-relationship.
Maybe that's why I was confused.
Yeah, probably. Post-relationship. So what I realized in the preparation, what happened a lot to me was that after a relationship ended, I would kind of wake up again, like some sort of cloud would evaporate and be like, who this? And I would be like a new person. And of course, like, because of all of the things I experienced within the relationship, but now I'm back on myself again, on my own. So this whole charm, this whole magic of, yes, people speak to me differently because I'm in a relationship is gone, because I'm no longer in a relationship, and I, like, my aura represents that. So I have parts of that relationship still in me, or taken further along, but then also I'm a different person because a lot of parts are gone because I'm by myself again. Sounds sad.
But when you say like the clouds lifted, that sounds really positive.
It sometimes was, sometimes I found myself in, I mean, it was great during the relationships, but after the relationships I was like, bloody hell, what was wrong with you, man? And like I would look back and be like, wow, you you were delusional, man. It's just like, how tinted were your glasses?
Yeah.
Legit.
Yeah. No, I think there's a big element of that happens. And like you said before, I don't think that's always a bad thing. I think you can spend time reflecting on your relationship experiences and what you've learned from them, and like even learning more about yourself to understand, like, why did you change? What parts did you like? What parts didn't you like? What do you want to keep? What do you want to shed? Like, what do you want to take forwards next time? What will you use to have a stronger sense of your identity?
Yeah. That is definitely a big part. Guys, if you would like to share your shit or tell me your shit, please do so. Go to Instagram, leave a comment, or go to our website, lovedoesn'tneedtobeshit.com. Go to the episodes and share your story with us. I would love to read from you how you experienced a different identity after a relationship, or what you've what awakenings you had. Let's try to answer the cliffhanger question. Do you think giving in makes us losing our identity?
It depends. For me, it depends on the topic. So, like, giving into the smaller things, like the example about washing up. In some ways, yes, because in some ways, like, it seems like a small thing, but actually, like you said before, that's so much about our cultural upbringing. And there's such a sense of identity if you're telling me I'm doing that wrong, because that's how my family does it. And it kind of feels deeper. It feels like it's telling me that my whole family wash up wrong, which is then criticizing my family. It's like, it feels like all of these layers.
It's like a rolling rock.
Yeah. So sometimes even the small things can feel like big things in terms of a sense of identity. I think there's a lot of smaller things that aren't, like, you can concede, you can let things go, you can let things slide, and it's okay. But there are anything that basically I think touches on those stronger pieces that are more inherent to you, so your values or any of your core beliefs, it does feel like conceding changes your identity. Now, like, I don't think that's to say that it does. Like, whatever, if I wash up differently, that literally does nothing. But the way it feels versus the reality are the different parts. So I think whenever you go to concede and or if you feel like you're conceding, if it feels like you're giving away something that's valuable to you, even if it doesn't feel like it should, it's really understanding, like, what is that it's triggering inside of you, and are you really, like, going against something you care about, or is it just because it feels that way and it's not actually important?
Yeah, fair. I think it's about the both people. I think it's mainly about the person that the identity would change. So does this person allow this change? Like you said, like, do they give in? Do they concede? And if you only concede, you like a walkover. Yeah, of course, like, you will change, like, but this change is likely because of the person that starts to change you. So it's not only because of it's not only on the receiving end, but also on the sending end, I think. So it's like, I just imagine like a relationship where the one partner is very firm on things and so intimidating that the other part is just giving in, be like, okay, like, okay, like, in what ways ever, which leads to an unhealthy relationship as well. If this dynamic exists, this is not healthy at all. Just a friendly reminder. If you find yourself in a way or in a relationship where someone uses different measures or different ways to pressure you and to put you into positions where you don't feel yourself and comfortable, that's not healthy. And if you start to, like, if you let this happening on the receiving end, and if this person is the other person that is changing you, getting more and more comfortable about, all right, well, if these are the rules, a little throwback to the communication episode here, rules we creating whilst communicating with each other. If these are the rules, well, yeah, I'm feeling comfortable within these rules. Let's expand these rules. So, and then more and more of your identity will get taken away, or of your freedom. And this freedom is like part of the space where you could develop your potential and your identity. So I think mainly, yeah, on the receiving end, that's a huge responsibility, but the liability is also on the sending end.
Yeah, that's super fair. Super fair. Yeah, and you know, it's harder to change those things sometimes, and it's like even that sense of identity, if you feel like you're behaving that way, if you feel like you need to get someone else to agree to something for you, it's understanding that, like, why is that part of your identity? Why is that important to you that the other person agrees?
Yeah, maybe it's time for a bit of fuck up toolkit.
Go for it.
Guys, I would like to give this little tool into your hands. Whenever you get out of a relationship, take a moment, take an afternoon, sit down and think about, how was this relationship? How were you before this relationship? How do you feel now? Who do you think you are now? Also, maybe think about what changes did this relationship make within your group of friends, within your beliefs, within your preferences. Maybe you express yourself in a different way. You gain some new interests. You throw overboard some others. What different identity do you have now, and how was yours before? Just reflect on that and be aware. Don't even value it. You don't need to, but be aware of it. What tool would you add into this fuck it toolkit?
I wasn't going to add anything in the fuck it toolkit yet, because I think there's one other important question that are the bits that I would then add into the fuck it toolkit.
Ooh.
My question is, what can you do in practice, apart from, like you said, just reflect, to keep your sense of self and understand your own identity as you move through a relationship?
Wow. I feel like that's such a $1 million question. Like, how...
Do you want me to give you some examples?
Yeah.
So I think some of the things that we do really well are we take time apart.
Yeah.
Whether that's like little bits of things that we want to do each day, or if like we spend weeks apart. We also like keep practicing our own hobbies and the things that we care about, which also gives you that time. It still keeps you in that space. And I think sometimes there's a tendency when you get into a relationship to let some of those things go. But I also think that we both still do quite a lot of our own self-development work. So we'll listen to our own podcasts, we'll read our own books, we'll be doing these things that we are spending time on ourselves to understand ourselves and grow still. But then I think the crucial thing when you're in a relationship and you go through those things is, if you're in a relationship and I'm evolving my own identity because I'm doing all of this stuff and you're doing the same, and we're not sharing that with each other, then you're both evolving potentially in different directions. So I also think it's really important when, like, sometimes we'll listen to the podcast together, or even these chats that we're having for this podcast are great examples of the conversations that you can be having all of the time to express your interpretation of something, so that you're constantly sharing that as with your partner in a relationship.
Yeah. That is Very, very good.
Anything? Is there anything else that you think you do?
Yeah. There was something. Honestly, like, wow, it's quite. Honestly, it's quite a lot of things. I really like it. There is something I feel like. Oh yeah. One fundamental thing. I think one part of it is the mindset, because what you said is we still have our own hobbies. Like, we still do the things we like. We still meet our friends, and I think a huge part of it comes down to that we just want the best for each other. You want the best for me, and I want the best for you. And it's like this fundamental mindset of I want to support you is crucial to be able to keep your identity in a relationship.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's definitely relationships that I've been in where the other person growing and evolving, or vice versa, feels threatening.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like that's too much of a change, that things will grow apart and things will differ. Whereas definitely the mindset that we have around, cool, I get that you want to do these things, you want to try this new thing, you want to do whatever, like, I want to support you, like, I want to see you thrive. And even if that means you're such a chameleon, like, I'm very much expecting that you will go through so many rebirths in the duration of the time that we spend together.
Well, guys, if you don't want to miss this whole trip, keep on liking, keep on hitting this subscribe button, and follow this journey on this podcast. And before we close this podcast, what is it you want to add into the Fuck It Toolkit?
So I think the big bit for the Fuck It Toolkit, if you're in a relationship, is what is the one thing that you can do? Just pick one thing that you can do that makes you feel like you have your identity, that allows you to stay true to yourself, and just try and keep that going.
What would that be for you? I can tell you mine.
Okay.
Skateboarding. Skateboarding is a huge part of my identity.
But you've not done it for 6 months.
Still.
I know, I'm joking with you.
Yeah, you're not joking with my identity, are you? Never.
That's how much it hurts.
Yeah. No, but honestly, like, that's a huge part of my identity. What would it be for you?
Okay, if I'm going to say the biggest, I just think the biggest is spending time on my own.
Ah, boring.
But I could tell you so
No,
many.
I'm joking. Okay. Spending time on your own.
Yeah.
Okay, fair play.
I think that's the thing that constantly brings me back to myself and helps me check if anything's off. I think if I lose that alone time, that's when I can easily drift into identity loss.
Crisis.
Yep.
Good. It's not what we want. All right. Guys, thank you very much for listening, for watching. It's I feel like we haven't covered even like half of it. It feels like identity is such a huge topic.
I agree, and I think that we've covered this at a very surface level.
Yeah.
I think you can go so deep into identity and what are those factors, what makes up identity, what can you do differently. But before you even get into that, like, even some of the stuff we've spoken about today is stuff that I haven't exercised in previous relationships that is so crucial.
Yeah, same. And with that, guys, keep it up, and
what are they keeping up?
their identity.
Thank you for listening. As Ben said, like, subscribe. We will see you again next time.
Yeah, rate, review, subscribe, and see you next time. Cheers.
It's always so funny when we record the episodes where your English goes to shit a little bit.
My English hasn't gone to shit in this episode, has it?
When you said throw a board, like, what's that phrase or saying?
Throw overboard.
Throw it overboard. No one says that.
Yeah.